Sorry, I forgot the core thing, that he has been politically and socially very active, and he has a crucial role as a campaigner in all states and national general elections since 96. He is one of the founders of Chennai chapter of Young Entrepreneurs Organization, a worldwide association of young entrepreneurs. Mr. Karti has co-founded an online social forum, Karuthu, means opinion, which promotes freedom of speech. He is a founder director of Chess Management Service, which is a company involved in corporate governance and legal compliance management, and he holds a business degree from the University of Texas, Austin, and a law degree from Cambridge University, England. Now, I would kindly request Mr. Chidambaram.
Well, I'd like to thank Mr. Vishwanath Karad and Rahul Karad and Professor Swaminathan for inviting me to Pune. It's not very often that I get to come to Pune, so it's a good opportunity for me to come here. And normally when I speak to young students in various colleges, they're normally very anti-politics. They don't like politics, and they have a great disdain for anybody in politics. They have a great distrust of government. So here I don't need to preach that, because you're all absolutely convinced about the need of politics and need for government, and that's why you're here in this program. So I'd be rather more keen to learn from y'all than for me to preach anything to you. You had a very long list of very eminent people, far more qualified than me, much bigger achievers than me, who have come here and spoken to you. So in whatever little way I will give my perspective, but more than anything else, I like to keep this reasonably informal, so perhaps we could interact and I could learn a lot more from you than me just imparting some of my two-bit knowledge. I just read a recent interview of Tony Blair. Tony Blair is somebody I admire greatly, because he was somebody who took over leadership of a large economic as well as military power at a very young age. He became Prime Minister at the age of 41, 42. And of course he's now going through tremendous difficulties, and because of his policies over Iraq and his policies of close proximity with the Bush administration, there seems to be tremendous discontent in the Labour Party over his leadership, and I'm sure you're all following that. They asked him a question, and they asked him, Mr. Blair, if you'd advise a young person today and who wants to make a difference in the world, what would you advise him to do? Blair apparently paused for a minute and answered, saying that he would advise a young person to become a scientist. He said there are many unsolved problems in the world, and I think he quoted AIDS and things like that, saying that today we need scientists to come and solve these problems. But I'd really like to disagree with Blair. I think Blair was speaking as a tremendously bitter man whose end game is not going the way he wanted it, and that's why he's sort of becoming cynical about politics. If a young person comes to me today in India and says, what should I do, or what vocation I should take in order to make the greatest impact on society in which we live or in the nation which we live, I'd, without hesitation, clearly tell him, take up politics. But unfortunately, that's not the prevailing sentiment among young people in this country today. That is not the prevailing sentiment among the middle classes of this country today. That is not the prevailing sentiment among the educated people of this country today. That is not the prevailing sentiment of the people who have economic power and wealth in this country today. In this country today, we are tremendously cynical about politics, and we completely hate government. We somehow believe that all the problems which we have been created by this government, for which we apparently have nothing to do with. That is the attitude of the average educated person in this country. He feels so alienated by government, or rather he believes he is so alienated by government. He somehow believes that government is some sort of an completely alien animal which has been thrust upon him, which is doing this great havoc and harm, which he has no control over, no stakes, none whatsoever, and no relationship, none whatsoever. But that is a tremendously depressing attitude. That is not only a depressing attitude, it is a tremendously unfortunate attitude. If you look at any society in this world, if you see how they have progressed, be it even 100 years ago to today or 200 years ago, you would see that civilized society, in order to progress, always had government at its fulcrum. There cannot be a society without government which has ever progressed. The government can be any form of government. It could be a dictatorship, it could be a monarchy, it could be a single party rule, it could be a multi-party democracy, it could be anything, but there was something called as a government which actually held society together. Government is a way in which civil society organizes itself. We organize ourselves through government. I mean, the fact that, I know it was quite chaotic driving in Pune, I must admit that, even though Rahul took me to Rajbog, I mean, it was a long drive. It was quite chaotic. The drive was quite chaotic because of the traffic and things like that. But it would be even more chaotic if we had no rules on whatsoever, no police to come and enforce those rules, and no licensing requirements, things like that. So civil society organizes itself through rules, through some sort of common codes of conduct which we all devise to operate with each other. Otherwise, I would be getting in your way and you would be getting in my way. Not necessarily in the traffic kind of a sense, but in any kind of sense, we'll get in our way. So in order to organize ourselves, we need rules, regulations, codes of conduct, which eventually become laws. And who is competent to come up with these laws? Society itself. But how does society do this? It organizes itself through government to do this. As I said, government can be anything. It can be a monarchy, it could be a dictatorship, it could be a single party rule, it could be a multi-party democracy. But whether we like it or not, in this country, we are straddled with and have inherited a democratic polity. So in this country, in order to engage government, in this country, in order to be part of the decision-making process of elected government, it is very, very essential to be part of the political process. It's not a country where there was an overwhelming dictator by which he had a court or she had a court around him, and where you could go and engage in that circle of courtiers around that dictator and then get things done. That doesn't work in this country. In this country, because we're a multi-party democracy, it is absolutely essential that you involve yourself in party politics. Very often when I speak to young college audiences or maybe middle class audiences, they say, yeah, that's all fine, but we don't like party politics. You know how that sounds? It's like saying, I'd like to play cricket, but I would not play for any team. It's as silly as that. In order to engage in politics in a democratic country, you can't ignore the political parties. It is practically impossible. I don't know how it is in Maharashtra, but at least in Tamil Nadu, it is practically impossible for an independent to win a member of assembly or the member of parliament seat. It's practically impossible because of that's how the political party system is entrenched in that sense. And that would pretty much hold true most of the country. I mean, there are exceptions here and there, but by and large, it's very, very difficult for anybody outside the political party system to come in and get elected to any kind of office of significance. So it's very, very essential for all those of us who believe that government plays a tremendously important role in the development of society, the development of the nation, to engage in party politics. To ignore party politics and to expect government to somehow be representative and to be efficient and to be good is actually living in a fool's paradise. And that is what I'd really accuse the middle class educated section of society in India doing. They completely ignore party politics. They not only don't they go and become members of a political party, they don't sympathize with any political party, they don't work with any political party, worse still, they don't even go out and vote. In fact, this morning I was reading this newspaper, which is I think a Bombay newspaper called DNA, in which they had done a survey in South Bombay among the really upper class people. I mean, I wouldn't like to name names. I think it's there in the paper, and I probably forget names. Really, the super rich of South Bombay. I think they went and interviewed a few people. I don't know if you get that paper here. It's a very it's a Bombay paper. And they said that overwhelming number of the rich South Bombay people did not know that the municipal elections of Bombay are on. They did not know that, I think yesterday was the last day, the 15th was the last day to file nominations in the corporations elections of Bombay. And they said that the really wealthy people who belong to large industrial families and who have all the access to wealth and influence simply did not even know that the elections were on. That is the apathy the educated elite in this country have about politics. But that is never the case in India.